Hello, Math students, and welcome back to Module 11 called Geometry. This is Lesson 2, and it is called Complementary and Supplementary Angles. Our goal for today we are going to learn about complementary and supplementary angles. The question that I want you to be thinking about during this lesson is, what are two angle relationships that were identified in the lesson? All right, so things to know. Where do angles come from? Angles are actually parts of a circle. And so all angles come from the unit circle. And some of you are thinking, well, that's interesting because we talked about circles yesterday, and that is correct. And what I want you to think about when we're talking about the unit circle is if you were to take a circle and bisect it and then bisect it again. Bisect means cut in half and then cut in half again. Both of these lines that are cutting it are forming right angles. So the right angle sits right here in the center. And what we do when we're working with the unit circle is the horizontal bisector intersects it at 0 degrees. So right here is 0 degrees. And if you used a protractor, the protractor measures from right here at 0. And then the degrees move to the right. So as you move around the circle, if you go up to the top of where it intersects, this is known as 90 degrees. And then if you kept going another 90 degrees, you would get 180 degrees. And then if you went another 90 degrees, you would get 270 degrees. And then if you went one last 90 degrees, then again you would line up with 360 degrees. So the 0 is where you start in the very beginning. The 360 degrees is where you end. So now you guys understand that if someone says, I did a 360 turn, that means they went all the way around in a circle. If you went a 180 turn, that means you just turned around, but you didn't go all the way around. So if you were facing that direction when you started and you go 180, then that means you're going to be facing this direction if you go 180. So that's where those little vernacular phrases that we come up with, a 180 turn or a 360 turn, that's where it comes from because they're talking about how many degrees it actually turned in the unit circle. So angles are where we have two sides that intersect at a point and they create a size in degrees, and that all stems from the unit circle. And this right here is what looks like the unit circle, remembering that it starts at 0, and then every time you move a certain number of degrees, it goes around in that circular motion, and that's what the unit circle is. Okay, so angles are formed by rotating from the starting point and measuring in degrees. So like we just said, here is 0 degrees right here, and that protractor is that tool that we talked about at the very beginning of the year that you would need to have for class. This is what a protractor looks like. Okay, and usually what they have is they have a center point right here where you line it up, and then over here on the end, this is where 0 is, and then on the other side, this is where 180 is. And then what it does is it measures all the way around, and it tells you what the degrees are in the variance of 0 all the way to 180. So it would count by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, and then 180 is over here. So that's your protractor. So you use the protractor to line up where the lines sit, and that gives you the measure of the degrees. So angles are combined, and that's how circles are formed. So if you were to take a measure all the way around and just put different radii along this circle, you would make different sizes of degrees. And when you get all of those degrees filled in, you have 360 altogether. Okay? So that's what you need to know about learning the degrees in a unit circle. Now we have two specific types of angles that we need to focus on for this lesson. First type is complementary angles. Okay, complementary angles, the way that we need to remember these is the complementary angles usually look like this. And what that means is the angles together create an angle that adds up to 90 degrees. So complementary angles are the sum of the measurements of two angles that equal 90 degrees. So if I was to create one more angle that sits, let's say, right here, this angle right here, this little tiny one, plus this angle over here, which makes a bigger one, equals 90 degrees. So the sum of two angles that equals 90 degrees. So you're going to take this angle right here plus this angle right here, right? And both of them added together equal 90 degrees. Okay, so it's the sum of this little angle plus the sum of, or plus this angle. So the sum of this little angle and this angle make the 90 degrees. That's what complementary angles are. Okay, some examples of this. The angles complement each other. And what that means is complement means they have to add up to 90. So 37 degrees plus 53 degrees, when you add those two numbers together, they should equal 90. So let's check it. 3 plus 7 is 10. Regroup the 1. 5 plus 3 is 8, plus 1 more is 9. And there you see that 37 degrees plus 53 degrees makes 90 degrees. So they complement each other. So complementary, the key word to remember with this, complementary always equals 90. Okay? So that's complementary angles. The other angle that we need to talk about or we need to be aware of is supplementary angles. And supplementary angles is where the sum of the measurement of the angles equals 180. Okay? And the interesting thing that we need to remember about 180 is it also is known as your straight angle, because this entire space from 0 on your unit circle all the way over to here, if you were to measure that on a protractor, this degree angle measure is 180. So we also know that 180 is a straight angle. So supplementary means, another name for it is the straight angle. Okay? And that's kind of funny when you think about straight angle. Well, if it's straight, does it really have an angle? And it absolutely does, because you're talking about here's the line, and if you were to use your protractor, you're talking about this angle right here. And that angle is always 180 degrees. Okay? So the sum of the measurement of the angles that equals 180. So let's say that that's it. Let's say we have this one coming off, and let's say we have this one coming off. So if you look at that, you actually have three different angle measures. So you have this little one right here, and then you have this one right here, and then you also have this one right here. So as you can see, there's this angle. Let me color it in so you can actually see it better. So you have this angle that we're talking about right there. We have this angle right here that we're talking about. Okay, and then we also have this angle right here that we're talking about. And all three of those angles added together, so it would be this one plus this one plus this one, and all of them added together equals 180. So you're adding all three of those angles together and it equals 180. Now, does it always have to be 3? No, you could have a bazillion sitting on there. The thing you have to remember about supplementary is that their total angle measurement has to be 180. Okay, the angles are supplements of each other. So what that means is if you take, I already can see I did a typo on this, I'm very sorry, but let's do this instead right here. 142 plus 38, so this one only has 2. So if we take 8 plus 2, we get 10, regroup that. 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 1 more is 8, and then 1 plus nothing is 180. So we now know that 140 degrees plus 38 degrees equals 180 degrees. Okay, and so the key to remembering supplementary angles is that their angle measure has to add up to 180. And you could have only 2, you could have 3, you could have 10. It depends on how many angles that actually exist on that straight angle. Okay? All right. So that's the two angles that we're talking about in this lesson. Complementary equals 90, supplementary equals 180. You've got to try really hard to just memorize what the two stand for. So picture this. This is what you have to do, okay? What does a 90-degree angle look like? So what I would like you to do in this space in your comp book is I would like you to draw me a 90-degree angle. I would also like you to come up with some kind of memorization tool that will help you remember what a 90-degree angle is called, okay? And then the next one that I would like you to do is, what does a 180-degree angle, I don't know why I can't say that today. What does a 180-degree angle look like? You're going to draw that down here, and I need you to come up with some kind of memory tool that will help you know what 180 degrees stands for. And then I have another question for you. What would 4 touching complementary angles make? Ooh, that one's kind of tricky. Complementary equals 90. So that means that all 4 of them are touching. So you're making 4 90-degree angles. Maybe if I say it like that, it'll be easier. What would 4 touching complementary angles make? So that means you have 4 90-degree angles. What would it make if they're all touching? Okay, then the next question is, what would 2 touching supplementary angles make? So supplementary is that straight angle. If you had 2 of them, what would it make? Okay, so I want you to play around with those. So those are the things that I would like you to try to figure out a picture to answer those questions with. Okay? All right, so let's go back to our goal for the lesson today. Today we are going to learn about complementary and supplementary angles, and we just did that. Complementary is when they add up to 90. Supplementary is when they add up to 180. What are the 2 angle relationships that are identified in this lesson? Well, it's right there in the goal. You should be able to answer that. Complementary and supplementary. Remembering that all angles come from the unit circle. Okay, talking about the total number of degrees is 360. Okay, and the angles are formed by rotating from the starting point and measuring the degrees. All right, kiddos, that's all I have in this lesson today. Talk to you soon. Bye.